I'm gonna do my best not to think about the fact that I could die when I stand up in a couple of days.
You want to know what's crazy though? So like talking to a kid the other day, and he was like, "Yeah, I watch YouTube on TV all the time because I can just put it on the TV and they just go on my phone, so I can text my friends and use Snapchat."
That's crazy, bro.
Okay, and I was like, "That is, I can't do that."
And here's us kind of having a circle jerk.
This is
hey,
so
great,
cool.
YouTube is great, but the kids are like, "Nah, this is boring. I'll put it on TV."
Bro, I just need more stimulation.
Just stimulate me more. You know, like I need some more Subway Surfer. All right, okay, that's a laugh, but in that is a real kernel of truth. The future of YouTube is the television.
I would take any creator's content. You know, Michelle Curry, I think, is in the audience, like her boxing documentary, put that up against any piece of content. Why shouldn't it win awards? Why shouldn't it win Emmys?
Ready for a YouTube Emmy campaign.
We've talked to people like Michelle on the show, showing how premium content is the next frontier for YouTube. But now we're seeing more and more evidence that television is the next big platform for our work.
So, how can you edit your videos to catch that TV wave? We brought back Paddy Galloway to tell us.
Thing that everyone knows about but no one's really thinking about, which is satisfaction on YouTube. YouTube don't give us a satisfaction score.
What would you consider to be a good intro that means that I can trust this video?
I've got into this thing. I love starting scripts with the word either this or so, thinking the first line like a title. Sometimes look at the MrBeast ones, right? And you just see the opening 30 seconds is like a short. YouTube's algorithm is way smarter than creators give it credit for, I think.
I like to describe the algorithm as stubborn. It's like you gotta like tell it, put it over here, please. No, it's like a toddler sometimes. I don't want to eat the broccoli. At some point, you might have to be that bad parent to force the broccoli down the kid's throat. Oh, that sounds terrible.
Dude, that's so great.
Let's go.
What's been like one of your favorite observations that's changed in this past year?
I think one thing that I'm putting way more emphasis on with the channels that I work with is TV viewership. TV viewership is growing so fast. Like, I've been looking at the graphs on the different channels I work with in terms of the explosion of that device type over the last, it feels like even the last year it's accelerated even further. But there's a point now where I look at some of the channels I work with, some of the larger channels, and there are occasionally videos that have 80% plus TV viewership. And I still feel like most YouTubers are in the state of mind that, oh, it's just on a phone.
Yeah.
You know? And there's some editing choices you have to make when you think about it being on TV. There's a lot of like, I think, retention choices. And I actually think, you know, on average TV viewership, this is an actual stat that we've been studying in our company, on average TV viewership is about 10-15% longer per video. So like people watch for longer on TV. And I feel like we talked about this last year, like this idea of like editing insecurity. I feel it's a good thing. I feel like TV, like there's a bit more friction to change.
Yeah.
Whereas this mobile, it's like, oh, thing, text from mom, thing. TV, it's like, sit down, watch something.
We talk about this a lot where I'll start watching a video on my phone and it feels great to watch, and the editing is confident, the presentation is like as excellent. This feels premium.
Yeah.
And then I go, my phone is not worthy of this. And so I then immediately then send it to my TV and I sit down on the sofa and I then sit back and relax. I put my phone over there and then I commit to the video so much more because of that.
What is the signal that gives you that, you know, hey, I need to do this. I cannot watch this on my phone. What is it about the video that makes you do that?
I feel the signals of effort. I feel the signals of care. I feel the signals of like emotion. I feel the signals of like, bottom line, this feels nice to watch.
So is that just like higher production quality? Is it actually like, oh, this is maybe an emotional video, and so I need to like sit down, like I can't be casual about it?
I think you answered the question. Yeah, like it feels higher production quality.
Okay.
I think it feels like there's a lot more emotion towards it. It's like this is intended to be viewed with a lot more intention, without going into that insecurity of like, I assume you're gonna stop watching. Now it's, I would like it if you keep watching.
How do you guys adjust for like that actual stat where, you know, TV is adjusted more? Like how do you advise clients with that?
I think a lot of it comes down to, I mean, the first thing for me, and this is one of my biggest pet peeves over the last years, is just, if you're going to put text on screen, I have to be able to read it. Like, and I feel with TV, this is even more so the fact, because what I see so often is clients just like, they're almost just trying to fill space with text and captions. And when you watch something on TV, there's a reason why the subtitles on movies and, you know, for TV shows is so much smaller, because you've got a big screen, you can see much more stuff. Recently I had a client that like put text the full length of the screen, and you kind of had to read every word to get what was being said. And I was like, imagine watching this on a 60-inch TV. you're gonna be in a neck brace. You're gonna be turning your neck looking at this thing.
Get whiplash.
So I think honestly, like timings is important, like for things like captions. I think generally being willing to slow down the pace a little bit, and also this is just a trend I'm seeing with a lot of clients. It's actually moving towards longer videos because when someone actually chooses, I hear this a lot, like, you know, the YouTube algorithm prefers long videos on TV. No, the YouTube audience chooses longer videos. Why? Because I mean, we all know this. When we sit down to watch something on TV, you don't want to watch a 5-minute video because then you have to change it and it's an effort. You want to put something on that you can sit down and get into. So I'd say the biggest things are, those little editing choices, but definitely like just even increasing video length and leaving a bit more of that story and depth in the video. Whereas 3 or 4 years ago, there was a lot more of that, as you call it, insecure editing.
So it sounds like there's more democratization between like streaming services and YouTube. It's like they're blending a little bit.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Well, yeah, like we often say, like we watched like a Michelle Carey video,
Yep.
Johnny Harris video, Dodford. You could put that on HBO Max. You could put that on Netflix, and it feels like it's suitable there.
Yeah.
And I think because of the fact that we've been trained of, like, when we watch Max on Netflix or anything, or Hulu, it's like, of course that's a session that we have on television. Now that we're getting that quality content on YouTube now, it's like that's now become part of your choice of what to watch on your streaming session.
Yeah. And I think the key thing is like something like Michelle Carey, for example, right? So she has that like almost like big feel, like cinematic, and it feels like it should be on a big screen, like you said. But there's still that YouTube, I'm relating to a person, I have a parasocial connection with a person. And that's always, that's why I think YouTube is so special. Like I think that's why, you know, instead of watching a documentary on Netflix, people choose one on YouTube because it feels like you're connected to the storyteller. And I think, you know, people like Michelle, like she does a really good job of that.
Yeah, you do watch something on Netflix and it's like, it feels like, this has gone through 200 people.
Yeah.
Whereas I think most stuff that we watch on YouTube, it's gone through 2 to 3 people, maybe even just one person.
It's like it feels handmade. It's like this is a handcrafted, you know,
film.
You want to know what's crazy though? So like we're talking about how great this is with TV viewership. I was talking to a kid the other day. He's like 12, 13-year-old kid. And he was like, I watch YouTube on TV all the time because I can just put it on the TV and they just go on my phone. It's like, that's why I watch it. So whenever I see a cool video on my phone, I just put it on TV so I can be on my phone at the same time. So I can text my friends and use Snapchat.
That's crazy, bro.
Okay,
and I was like, I can't do that. Like, that's wild.
Well, actually, that's you're muting our entire conversation. Here's us kind of having a circle
like,
jerk.
this is
Hey,
so
great.
cool.
YouTube is great. But the kids are like, nah, this is boring. I'll put it on TV.
Bro, I just need more stimulation.
Just stimulate me more. You know, like I need some more Subway Surfer. Fuck. Hello. Cheeky interlude. So for those of you who don't know, I just came back from a trip from my motherland, England. But while I was travelling, I still had to work on the Spider-Verse episode that you've all come to know and love. And I was able to make working on the go safe, simple, and seamless. Surfshark VPN is the VPN service to protect all of my online file transfers, and the sponsor of today's episode. I will admit, there's been many times I've had to upload a video file at a Starbucks or a sketchy airport using random Wi-Fi to transfer important personal files. But Surfshark VPN, there is never a concern with the security of my files with their state-of-the-art encryption technology. And while I'm on that shady Wi-Fi, Surfshark's clean web tech allows me access to any website without dealing with pop-ups or malware. For a short time, get this exclusive Surfshark Black Friday deal. Enter promo code EditingPod to get up to 6 additional months for free at surfshark.deals/editingpod.
You said something interesting. You said, you know, YouTube might serve you something different based on the device you're on. Is that actually a thing?
It knows when it's like at 11 p.m. I'm getting ready to go to sleep. It starts serving me 2-hour videos, knowing I'm going to fall asleep to them.
Crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's
or
wild.
it knows in the morning. It's like, hey, I just want to just watch a quick 5-minute video because it's noticed my viewing habits. Like, hey, let me watch a 5-minute video before I start work. You know, because I'm procrastinating my day. It's like it knows what videos to serve us depending because it's been watching our viewing habits.
My answer to anything like that is always YouTube's algorithm is way smarter than creators give it credit for. I think, like, even just like that example, like personalization based on your viewing behavior, your watch history, what other people like you are watching. Like sometimes creators comes up to me and they say, oh, like, do you think the YouTube algorithm understands this or that? And it's like really simplistic things. And I'm like, this thing is like way more powerful than we even realize. It's the best recommendation system ever built. And I think sometimes we need to kind of sink that in and be like, yeah, if there's a viewing behavior and audience input, YouTube know about it. One of my philosophies has always been to just make, like, the algorithm is really smart, but also let's make its life easy. But sometimes that comes at the cost of creative expression. you know, because one of the things I even talked about this in my presentation just there was this idea that like, let's make videos that 80% plus of our audience can be interested in and watch. And it sounds like a really simplistic thing, but so often you look at a creator's channel, I'm like, well, 30% might like that, 10% might like that, 20% might like that. When you zoom out the big picture, it's like you don't really have a bingeable catalog. You just have a collection of random ideas, which is like the human mind, that we're all different and we all have this kind of, there's very few people that will have the exact same taste in everything as you two do. I think that's the difficulty. Maybe that's like the next level up of the algorithm. Like you post a video and it's able to learn so fast. I think that's the thing, like the time horizon is the thing missing, because I do believe if some of those podcast episodes you're talking about were truly exceptional in every category, like thumbnail, title, delivery, intro, everything, over time, eventually the audience would be found. That's my personal belief. That's based on biased data of how it's worked for me typically. It's just a time horizon. It's just not instant. It takes time. Like I've had videos that, you know, lie dormant for months, and then like, I don't know, month 6 suddenly gets like 500k views. I'm like, well, obviously this was a good video then, because it got 500k views, but it just took time to get there.
Yeah, I think I like to describe the algorithm as stubborn.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like you gotta like tell it, put it over here, please. No, put it over here. No, put it over. No, I don't want to. It's like a toddler sometimes. I don't want to eat the broccoli. But then at some point you might have to be that bad parent to force the broccoli down the kid's throat. Oh, that sounds terrible.
Dude, that's so crazy. I mean, I'm just really curious about editing trends from the last year. I know you talked about the device type and, you know, maybe slowing things down. We talked a lot about how to get high retention without being desperate last time we talked. And so is there anything else that you've noticed in the editing world that in clients that you've worked with?
I'd say it sounds like such a funny thing to say that it's become more important, because it should have always been important, but definitely music choices. Seen that a lot. I just met a guy outside who said he's starting to do custom scores, like he's starting to do custom music for like Mark Rober and some of these really big creators. I feel like there's a lack of information around where to find really good music, and I think sometimes getting custom stuff is maybe the next move. So I'd say that's something. And then I still think that people underestimate the importance of just your actual scripting in the first 30 seconds as well, and how you're using that to guide the edit. Like I so often like unpack what I do with clients, and it's not necessarily like building an incredible transition or anything. It's usually just like, well, what are we saying and how do we make sure the edit gets that across immediately? And almost sounds crazy to almost bring it back to thumbnails again, but like this idea that your intro is like a thumbnail. Yeah. Like with previews, like that's becoming something that's being more and more used on YouTube. I'm seeing viewing behavior. Sometimes I love, like, we have this like sort of like train in Ireland called the Lewis. It's like a kind of tram. When you're on that, like you're all stuffed in like sardines. And oftentimes I just see people on their phone, and I just kind of watch their viewing habits on YouTube. Something I've noticed really recently is just how many people just like actually just like go to a video and then let it preview and then just like look at it for a while before choosing it. And that was not something people did a few years ago. I mean, it wasn't even a thing a few years ago. And that's like, the edit's crucial in that. Like, what are you putting first? What's the like visually interesting thing? What are you getting across the viewer really quickly in that opening 30 seconds?
What is the clear information that you can give that is essentially the ask? Here's why you should watch my video.
Yeah.
And I think we're beginning to learn that we're following the same thing that Hollywood's been doing for years, where it's the movie title, that's our title, the movie poster, that's our thumbnail. But then what do we then get next in marketing? The trailers. Yeah. We're following the exact same format. And so our intros is essentially the pitch as to why you should then commit to watching this film, in our case, content. And so I think it's like, it's just the more things change, the more the same, we're just getting that same parallel again.
You sometimes look at the MrBeast ones, right? And you just see the opening 30 seconds is like a short.
It is, yeah.
And I think that's a really useful way of putting it. Like it's like a piece of short form content that you have to watch to unlock the rest of the video.
Yeah. The best editors today, or the best creators, should kind of look at the intro as like essentially a separate piece of content. Like, focus on that being that, like, try and focus it on it being a short. How could I tell you to watch this video in 30 seconds? Make that, like, complete your video, then probably make the trailer, and then just simply put that at the front. Make sure they kind of like transition between each other reasonably well, and then there's your video. But just treat it as a separate part of that process.
What do you guys think are the most important pieces of information to include in a trailer as an editor? Like, say you got a bunch of footage and they maybe didn't write an intro, you know, as they were shooting. So how do you go about formulating that as an editor, do you guys think?
Well, my first step would be to shout at the creator. and say, why did you not get the footage? Like, because come on, but I know, like, I'm
happens,
acting like
though.
it's facetious, but that happens all the time. Like, so many times, like, oh yeah, we forgot the intro. Like, oh yeah, that's like so important, but we just forgot to like script it and shoot it. I think it really is looking for those, like, almost like seeing a storyline, like something unfolding and reaching a high point, and then just the classic cutting there, like that, the story that is unfolding before your eyes, like looking for those moments in the video. And every video has a few moments like that. But I would say, just generally speaking, I'm not the biggest fan, from studying retention for years, of the kind of coming up style. I'm never the biggest fan. I usually like actually just starting straight away in action and actually having the video unfold from there. I have this thing I talk a lot with the clients I work with, which is like, there's metrics that YouTube give you, which is like AVD and CTR and all these things, right? We actually have these custom metrics, which are like time to action. So how many seconds did it get to the first piece of action? Now, I think people see action as just like someone jumping over a bridge or someone being chased down a tunnel or something. I just see action as like why people clicked on the video. Like, if it's a video essay, maybe it's just getting into the most interesting part of the story. Like, how long does it take? So time to action, actually tracking that and like looking for our videos and seeing, well, in the videos where we got into that action, where whatever it might be, you could even replace action with value if you're like an educational channel. Yeah. And then also tracking time to satisfaction. So action might be the start of the story. Satisfaction might be the peak or the value put across to the viewer. And I like tracking both those metrics and just, not worshiping them by any means, but like looking at that as a general guide of like, well, the videos where we got into action faster and the videos where we had that like dopamine hit, which people use a lot, how early was that in the video and how did that impact like satisfaction for the video? Because there's this like thing that everyone knows about, but no one's really thinking about, which is satisfaction on YouTube. YouTube don't give us a satisfaction score. So we don't know. Like,
we still can't, that's a big thing I talk about. We still can't really quantify that. Like there's a limit to how we can quantify that idea of how satisfied we were in watching this video. Yeah.
Like I've tried to formulate equations with like a combination of retention, likes, comment sentiment, things like that. It's just very difficult to predict. Like, we can have like a satisfaction score, but how accurate is it? And I think that's like a missing piece of this whole puzzle. And creators can focus so much on the click and the AVD and just forget about that satisfaction thing. But I'm just a firm believer that if you just front load the video with something right away that validates why I'm watching this video, if it's like, it's even like this thing, like imagine you're a listicle creator and you have 5 steps to do something, right? So many people put the most boring step first because they just want to get it out of the way. I'm like, well, first of all, none of the steps should be boring. Otherwise, unless it's like really needed for a technical thing or something. But I always think, like, how can we put the sort of fresh, unique, interesting thing early in the video? And that's just going to almost just like confirm to me I made the right choice. Well, delivered on the promise.
What would you consider to be a good intro that means that I can trust this video?
I would say that the first thing is literally your first line. Like, what does that first line tell me? And so often, even going even more granular, I think about the first word, because I've got into this thing. I love starting scripts with the word either this or so, because it prompts you to say something. It doesn't like give you this space where you go like, hello and welcome to my channel and today we're going to talk. It's like, this is, and you instantly have to say something after that. So I think I always look for like the first word being something that's just like pushing me into a sentence. I want that first sentence to just start as if like, yeah, like you're just there in front of me and I'm just trying to grab your attention as you're walking by, thinking of the first line like a title. Like thinking of the first line like a title, I think is really important. And then I think what I like is this idea, I'm not sure if we've talked about this previously, but I really like this idea of statement plus intrigue and being really pragmatic with it, where you just state whether this is visually stating something or just actually telling me something, what the video is going to be about, and you don't need to repeat the title. I think it should be sort of building on the title. So you state the video and then you have some form of intriguing language, something like, the classic example is like, today we're going to talk about the 5 best water bottles in the world, and pay attention because some of my choices are gonna shock you.
As soon as someone does that, that makes me lose trust. Fuck you, I'm out. It's like, that is like, oh, you're trying to trick me into watching this. But like, so I disagree with that. Like, the fifth thing will shock you. It's like, oh, piss off, I'm out. I
exaggerate it for classic effect. Water bottle watchers, they like it. So,
the water bottle niche loves those cheap tricks. There was one intro that I experimented with recently, and it was something that I got from a book called Storyworthy.
I've read that. It's great.
Yeah. And I mean, do you remember the pages when he talked about the elephant?
Yeah.
So I think I'll quickly break this down because I think this is such a fascinating concept. Like, every story must have an elephant. The elephant is a thing that everyone in the room can see. It is large and obvious. It is a clear statement of the need, the want, the problem, the peril, or the mystery. It signifies where the story is headed, and it makes it clear to your audience that this is in fact a story and not just simple musing on the subject. And then he then goes into talking about how can you then create some of that emotion, creating some of that intrigue. And then this was the example that he gave. Version 1. My mother was the kind of woman whom everyone adored, the model of decorum and civility. She served as PTO president and treasurer of the Ladies' Auxiliary. She was the only female umpire in our town's little league, and she baked and knit and grew vegetables by the pound. I mean, yeah, that's kind of nice. He then gave version 2. I don't care how perfect my mother was. When I was 9 years old, I wanted to disown her, leave her home and never return, forget that she ever existed. My mother was the kind of woman whom everyone adored, the model of decorum and civility. She served as the PTO president and the treasurer of the Ladies' Auxiliary. She's the only female umpire in our town's little league, and she baked and knit and grew vegetables by the pound. And just that first sentence just set up that tone, set up that feeling, set up the something's wrong here. Why is this person absolutely hates his mother already? That's breaking so many societal rules. How dare you hate your mother? And then describes how perfect she is. This makes me go, okay, there is a massive implication of a really interesting story here.
Well, just as you were reading those, it's really interesting. I completely phased out during the first one.
Yeah.
You know, I actually did. Like,
great.
I'm tired anyway. I'm
proved the point, yeah.
literally phasing out. That framing in the first line, it just changes everything. Then it makes the same information feel sinister and more intriguing. I'm like, it's like just presenting that story that you need to answer in the video. Like it's almost like giving the viewer a little bit of a goal of like, I need to figure out what this is. I need to be the detective. I need to investigate and figure out how this is going to unfold. And I think so many small creators and even big creators, they make videos without mission. Like they're not really giving the viewer anything that they're going to find out or unfold. Or, you know, I've always liked the idea of like taking a concept and making it like something you have to watch to investigate how this thing unfolds, and then taking that even deeper and just thinking about that first sentence, like immediately talking about that there is like really smart. I even think to an extent with my videos, I don't think I follow exactly that, but I read that book a long time ago, and something in the first sentence that's like challenging the thought that the person already has about the creator that I'm covering. So just saying something like, you know, you probably think MrBeast only spends money. Well, actually, there's something much more sinister behind the scenes. Or that makes you go, whoa, that's a bit of an elephant. Then I just kind of brush by it, and you can, it's almost, it's like putting a thing in front of the boring context that's still needed, but it's putting something in front of it that's going to make me want to wait through that to see how this story unfolds. I really like that.
This is the classic, the elephant in the room thing.
Yeah. If
you can just tell us, there's an elephant in the room, and by the way, let me tell you about this thing over here. And I went, well, no, I want to know why there's an elephant in the room. It's like, this is just that classic example of that. Yeah. And I think genuinely, I'm either about to throw myself under the bus or see if this has been proven. But that's exactly something that I tried in my latest video.
We all want to continue our success when we go viral, but most of us rarely succeed in following that up. Let's say you've been trying to go viral for years, and then one day, finally, it worked. You make a series that gets millions of views and a brand new massive audience that will surely click on every new upload. But they didn't.
How did that feel to you?
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was engaging. I like it. It's immediately like, and it didn't start with something I didn't know about. Like it's like I don't have too much context on this channel, but now I have a framing.
Yeah, and then there we go. And I think so. That was the thing. That was the theory. It's like, okay, so this is a case study of like this may work. So let's find out, did this work? And then engagement, and then let's find out. That's fine. So after 1 minute and 44 seconds, I'm still at 65%. Let's check that the entire intro was about 1 minute. Was at 67%, at 67.6%. So for me, in my perspective, I think that feels pretty good. Is that pretty good?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, not to be the boring guy, but we have to take the context and the relativity of the channel and performance and all the things that go into a metric. But what I will say is I'm much more interested in actual chart behavior than I am in just percentages. And what I can see is you did lose quite a few people in the opening 15, 20 seconds.
Yeah.
But the people that stayed, that's a really good hold for so early in the video. Like you see that flat line from about, it looks like it's about maybe like 30 seconds to like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Like you held retention really well. I'm just really curious what you did at that red line because you obviously made some form of mistake there.
This red line?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think I didn't deliver well enough. Hold on. Give some context.
It's like when the text came out. It's like when you said, wait, what beat? And then text came up, and then they had to read it. I don't know what it
This
was.
is the problem with retention curves and how too many people like take them too literally and not think about all the context that goes into a curve, because
that is so true.
you know, like some people would see that and say like, okay, Hayden, I'm a YouTube genius here, so don't put text in your videos anymore. 'Cause look, drop.
No, yeah.
Whereas like it's so like, you know, the people that stayed, maybe they really like that, you know. I know we talked about that last year, like the idea that people just hyperfixate on the 1% or 2% that fell and not the 98% that stayed.
It's the light switch.
The light switch thing again.
Yeah. I think one thing you could say though is you've delivered, like, I feel like what you've just done there, whenever you bring like a terminology or like a term or like an acronym, like that's like delivering to me satisfaction and value, because that's what your audience care about. I guess you've delivered that, and then you're kind of you're dwelling in that point a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, it needs to be dwelled in, like you need more context, but then you like ask their opinion, they're like, yeah, I could have done that. And I guess the viewers that are holding so well, this is a really important thing about retention, is when you actually do hold so well like you do in that point, there's almost like a built-up fatigue. It's like sleep fatigue. It's like you've built up this fatigue in the audience. We're like, okay, a lot of us have stayed that don't usually stay. We're usually the guys that are going to click off right now, but we've stayed for a while. So when you kind of give them that one opportunity, like, here's the value, they're like, okay, I got some value, now I'm going to go do something else. Now I'm going to go watch something else. Did you set the viewer like a kind of guideline? Like, for example, if the viewer knew that was a piece of value you're going to deliver, but then there was something else coming soon. You know, I know it sounds like it's assumed. It's like, well, the video's like 10, 15 minutes, right? So like, of course people are going to keep watching, but I find that like, even it's so simple, but just even setting the viewer up with like, there's 3 steps to this, you know, even with that point there, maybe you could have brought it in and said, so this is the first of a few things that like right away, this thing is causing you issues. The wait, what is it? Wait,
what beats? Yeah.
Wait, what beats? So like straight away, that's an issue. And then you're almost like, even in your tone, you're not being like super overt and like, you know, a lot of YouTubers are like, you know, keep watching because we're going to tell you something else.
I just hate that stuff so
but
much.
you can do it subtly. You can do it in a way where in your mind, you're aware that you are talking to someone. It's like having a conversation with someone that's kind of like, you know, so you're like, you're trying to like draw that person in. So you can kind of be like that in your mind without being super like open and avert and just like, yeah, keep watching because bro, we're doing something crazy at the end.
What would you then describe the difference of like the intention of, here is good reasons for people to stay, and then also what bad executions have you seen of that?
Damn, that's a hard question.
Yeah, as I was saying it, I was like, fuck, this is gonna be interesting.
Yeah. I would say breaking the immersion is the biggest thing, because like there's nothing worse than being actually glued into a storyline and then just suddenly having this kind of like sudden call to action or sudden like, oh, remember what you're watching. I think it really comes down to timing when you try to naturally, subtly introduce those type of things, because there's parts in the video where you don't need them. A really good part where you do need them is when you've just delivered a point that you've been building up to, especially thinking that retention curve we showed where you have that like really good continuous hold, then you deliver the points and value. That like 10, 20 seconds after that, that's like retention danger zone. That's like your little red zone that you could try to subtly introduce, like maybe it's a visual cue, maybe it is just some scripting stuff. You could have just said, oh, the first thing I want to talk about is this, which instantly then plants the seed, well, there's something else. I think the biggest issues I see is when a creator just puts that in like the middle of a continuous hold. Like some creators will just interrupt a really good storyline in the middle of it. Like when I know in my head that the viewer has something that they're waiting for, I can be slower in the edit. I can slow it down. I'm like, this viewer needs this thing. And then in the transitions, that's where I always want to be fast. I think that's the biggest issue is mistiming when you try those tactics.
That's interesting. It's interesting that you mentioned that, because I was thinking about what we've learned from traditional editors in this scenario, and what they say, especially in narrative, is you have to enter a scene as late as possible and exit a scene as early as possible. So any kind, like that's those transition moments is like the enter and exit of a scene, and that's where the fluff exists. And so if there's so much of scenes that just get absolutely cut out, how can every single cut motivate the progression of the storyline?
What do you guys think about, like, even just from learning editing, film, TV, studying storytelling, what do you think about like sort of trying to convert traditional storytelling structures to YouTube? Because I think a lot of YouTubers get it wrong, where either they don't look at it at all, or they just try to adapt it literally. And like even like in a 3-act narrative in a film, there's always that like really like, you know, the resolution, like all the Avengers meeting up and being like, well, that was a great day at the office kind of thing, you know? Like that kind of like everyone, the guy getting the girl, all that sort of stuff unfolding. Whereas for a YouTube video, I just really don't believe that converts well with retention and with trying to make sure the viewer sees an end screen to go watch another video.
I think the best way I like to describe it is I think about Avengers Endgame, and we all kind of tuned in for the big fight, and everyone comes. Have you seen Avengers Endgame?
No.
Fuck. But I think
Hey, you haven't seen The Godfather.
Oh, that's true. Fine. All right, fine. You watch Avengers. You're gonna have to watch all of the Marvel. Fuck yeah.
You know what I'll do? Like I'll watch Avengers Endgame on my phone while Godfather's in the background. How about that?
All right. You know what? That's a fair. That's a terrible trade. But I think that might be the best compromise.
Yeah.
In terms of, let's just say, in Avengers, I'm gonna spoil it then for you. I'm really sorry.
I don't care.
You don't care.
No.
Okay. So the big climactic fight scene that they've been building up for like 10, 20 years at that point finally happened. And it was an incredible experience. But then the bad guy was defeated. But then this movie goes on for another 25 minutes because some characters had also died, and they do the funeral scenes, and then they do like the grieving process, like we beat him, but at what cost? Sort of experiences. Whereas if that type of experience was to be on YouTube, to the extent like you've beaten the bad guy, the implication of, okay, this is kind of ending. And then I think we all do this. As soon as we get that feeling that the video is ending, we move on. We immediately start thinking, what other video can I click onto? Or I click back to the YouTube homepage. As soon as I know that the feeling tells me it's going to end.
Do you think that, like, let's take the Avengers Endgame example, which now I have more context on. Let's say, so the bad guy at the end, right? After that happens, if in the movie cinema there was like one button and you could switch to another movie, do you think people would do it? Or are they that emotionally invested into the characters?
Well, I think every time I do watch that, and when the bad guys have defeated and the main characters have died, it's like I am still emotionally engrossed.
Yeah.
And I'm grieving. I think it's like I've still watched it 10 times and I still grieve one of the main characters is dying, and so I'm still in. But that's also spent 20 years building up to that point, and then in that context of that movie, 3 hours building up to that point.
Yeah.
And so. So they've had the time investment to earn that emotion, whereas like in our context, it's a bit more difficult to earn that emotion in 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think it's that combo of like the platform, and I know we talked at the start about how TV is kind of maybe shifting that viewing behavior in a positive direction for things like that, but like the platform and then the length of time to build, and also the fact that YouTube just doesn't really have. I've had arguments with this of people that I really like at YouTube that I just still feel like YouTube is not great for episodic content.
I want it to be that.
But I've had arguments and people at YouTube say like, oh, it is, and you're just neglecting it. But I still don't have enough confidence to really try it. Maybe I should and see how it goes. And I think there's some people who've done a good job, like Ryan Train. But even with Ryan, like he's able to package the videos so that every video feels like its own thing. And I still think like that episode 1, episode 2, episode 3 structure is difficult on YouTube.
But actually, I think there's one thing that TV is doing that I think we've all been scared to try that I think could be very effective. And I'm kind of trying to set you up because I want you to figure this out. What does most of these TV episodics things do at the end of each episode that convinces you to watch the next?
Sets up the next storyline for the next video, for the next episode.
A cliffhanger.
Yeah, cliffhanger.
The game that I like to kind of play then is this. Let's just say MrBeast made a massive series of like a series of challenges, and instead of putting all of them into like one big 20-minute video, what if each of those games was its own video? Let's just say we satisfy the click, we go through each of these people. This person fails, this person fails, this person succeeds, this person was kind of fun, that was a great character moment. But then maybe we've been setting up the idea of this is the riskiest person, is whether they're going to make it through or not. And we're setting up those seeds as this person's either going to succeed or this person's going to get kicked out because they failed that challenge. And then right at the end, let's just say it's like they've got to do the big jump. And like, come on, Jason, you can do it. The music builds up, we're getting closing up, we're cutting to like Jimmy going, oh my God, he's going to do it. He jumps, cut, video ends. And then everyone goes, oh my fucking God. And then we wait 24 hours. And
or
then
a
the
week,
next, or even
however,
a week.
However long you want to make it.
Probably release this weekly. And then the next video then begins. And then we immediately find out the resolution. Did this person make this jump or not? They did, they didn't. We didn't get the emotional catharsis that we just had from the previous video. And now we're going to start setting up the next challenge. Welcome to challenge 2. We're going to be doing this. And then off we go. We get straight back into the next part of it. For me, that sounds incredibly exciting. One, for waiting for, let's just say, a week for that release. Oh my God, did he make it? But then let's just say afterwards, did he make it? Oh my God, you immediately click on the next video.
It's just interesting because I just finished watching Ahsoka. I got so excited, and I honestly enjoy watching Ahsoka, the Star Wars show, as a weekly release more than binging it. Yeah. Because there's something satisfying about, withholding yourself. Like, food tastes better after you fast. Yeah. And so it's like, sometimes it's a much more satisfying viewer experience to withhold that satisfaction from you and literally spend 7 days waiting for it.
Yeah.
So I agree with I love everything you said. I don't think it works.
Why?
It's so I just have this thing. It's like, you know, in business, there's always the saying where in product development or anything, like, don't try to change a behavior, try to work with a behavior. And I would love for people to disagree with me on this, but I feel like the YouTube viewing behavior and even just the way that content is displayed through recommendation feeds and, you know, through suggested videos, I find the issue with what you said about the MrBeast idea as well. Then his next upload, that is going to have potentially less appeal to new viewers. So he's going to look at that and he's going to say, well, if I separate them out, sure, my total view count might increase because I'm pushing more people across, you know, more videos, but that video then becomes it's not a great entry point unless you can find a way to tie it all together. Maybe like what Ryan did with his Penny series, where he had that really quick catch-up line where you just got into, I'm going across America, like really subtle, really quick. I feel like for the MrBeast video though, it's like, well, if I just click on this video for the first time, I'm just discovering him for the first time. I think that MrBeast model is all about flagship. It's like every release is a flagship product, and every release could be the first time that someone finds MrBeast, and every release is the first time. Like there's millions of people that find MrBeast for the first time with every upload he makes. So I think I had that debate with someone back when Jimmy was doing the Squid Game video, and someone said to me, he should just like divide it into like 3 episodes, make it a 3-part structure. That would be insane. And now looking back, I think it would be really cool and it could have been amazing. But I still think if you're optimizing, if you're trying to reach the biggest amount of people, which that's a separate question if that's the goal. If it's more of a goal to create depth and relationship with that core base over time, that's a separate question. But when you're trying to make the biggest splash and impact, putting it all together, doing it in one, and the thing that sometimes puts me off episodic content is like your first episode sets the ceiling for the rest of the series. Yeah. Like how often, like, you know, it's kind of like that's where it peaks. So if you're, I always say like sometimes I talk to people that, you know, they say I'm working on this series, the first one bombed, and I'm like, okay, you're in trouble.
Because the rest of the series is going to bomb anyway. Yeah.
And I feel like in traditional media, you know, like what's the most successful US sitcom ever? The Office probably, or one of the most successful ever, right? I remember when that first came out. I don't actually remember, but I remember reading about it that it kind of bombed and people weren't that sure about it because they used a lot of the British humor and the Americans were like, this isn't wholesome enough.
The first season was pretty bad.
It
had to find its footing.
And then like, you know, it builds and people go back and watch it, and I just feel like I don't think it's a YouTube algorithm issue. I think it's almost like a viewing behavior issue where people on YouTube don't watch a video and say, I'm going to go back to the start of this series, and it's like every video you make is viewed as an entry point to potential new viewers. And maybe that can change and maybe I'm wrong, but that's just my take on it.